The gleaming doors of the Galactic Council chambers swooshed open with their usual dramatic flair, and Ambassador Zarah Chen sauntered in precisely 15 minutes late, as was human tradition, or so she had convinced everyone. The assembled alien delegates tracked her movement with a mixture of fascination and horror, their various sensory organs fixated on the sleek, metallic container clutched in her right hand. "My sincerest apologies for the delay," Zarah announced, her voice carrying that uniquely human tone that somehow managed to convey both absolute politeness and complete insincerity. "You know how it is with morning traffic in the Alpha Centauri bypass." High Counselor Virax's crystalline form shimmered with barely contained annoyance. "Ambassador Chen, this is the 4th time this cycle you have arrived late," clutching that their translation matrix struggled for a moment. That vessel of dubious content. Zarah took a long, deliberate sip from her travel mug, savoring both the rich aroma of her triple-shot espresso and the way 3 different species environmental suits began running emergency filtration protocols. "Oh, this," she raised the container. "Just my morning medicine." The chamber erupted in worried whispers. The PX-Laxians' tentacles twisted into anxiety knots, while the ZX-Lac representatives' exoskeletons rattled in what their species considered nervous laughter. It hadn't always been like this. Zarah remembered when humanity first joined the Galactic Federation, 5 years ago. Back then, the aliens had been so proud of themselves for discovering what they considered a primitive but promising species. That was before they realized that humans had some unique qualities. "If I may remind the Council," a Medusan representative spoke up, their plasma-based form flickering with concern, "this is the same medicine that caused 17 of our most advanced research laboratories to declare emergency quarantine last month." "Oh no," Zarah corrected, taking another sip. "That was just regular drip coffee. This is espresso." The chamber's atmospheric processors whirred to life as several species began hyperventilating in their respective ways. The Artikians, being gaseous entities, had to quickly solidify to avoid dispersing in panic. A memory flashed through Zarah's mind the first time she'd offered coffee to an alien diplomat. Poor Ambassador KRX of the Silicon Collective. They'd insisted on analyzing the mysterious human performance enhancer, and had ended up vibrating at a frequency that nearly shattered their crystalline form. The incident had sparked 5 separate scientific investigations and 1 religious movement dedicated to understanding humanity's chemical ascension. Ambassador Chen, High Counselor Virax's voice cut through the chaos. "Perhaps we could proceed with today's agenda, unless you need another moment with your medicine." Zarah smiled, the kind of smile that had inspired 3 species to update their threat assessment protocols. "Of course, High Counselor, though I should mention this is only my first cup." The PX-Laxian delegate fainted, their tentacles going limp in what their species considered a universal sign of nope. As Zarah took her seat at the human section of the chamber, she couldn't help but notice the subtle shuffling of chairs as various delegates tried to increase their distance without being obvious about it. The ZX-LAC representative was actually wearing what appeared to be a personal force field new protocol since last week's incident when Zarah had sneezed after a particularly spicy sip of her pumpkin spice latte. She pulled out her datapad, pretending not to notice how the Medusan delegate's plasma form had shifted to a nervous shade of puce. The daily show was about to begin, and Zarah hadn't even finished her first cup. It was going to be an interesting morning in the Galactic Council, just like every other morning since humanity had joined the ranks of spacefaring civilizations. And somewhere in the secure archives of the Galactic Federation, a file marked Human Chemical Tolerance Maximum Classification continued to grow larger by the day. High Commander Virax's crystalline form pulsed with barely contained frustration as they reviewed the latest failed research attempts. Their personal chamber aboard the ZX-THLAC science vessel Eternal Query was littered with holographic displays showing various human biological readings, chemical analyses, and one particularly concerning video of a human consuming something called a venti americano with an extra shot in under 2 minutes. "Explain to me," Virax's voice resonated through the crystalline chamber, "how a species can willingly consume a substance that would send our finest warriors into a berserker rage." Dr. K. Rix, the galaxy's foremost xenobiologist and current holder of the most likely to have a nervous breakdown over human biology award 3 years running, fidgeted with their data crystal. "Well, you see, Commander K. Rix's translators struggled to convey their scientific distress. The latest scans of Ambassador Chen's discarded beverage container show concentrations that should be, by all known laws of biochemistry, lethal. Yet she had 3 of them. Before lunch, Rax's crystalline structure emitted a high-pitched tone of disbelief. 3? Are you certain? Absolutely. And she called them a light morning. Rix pulled up a holographic display of human cellular structure. Look at this. Their cells don't just tolerate the substance, they seem to thrive on it. It's as if millions of years of evolution specifically prepared them to consume this. Coffee Rax provided, the word sending a shiver through their crystal matrix. In another part of the station, Ambassador Zarah Chen was having entirely too much fun. She had accidentally left her half-full coffee mug in the diplomatic lounge, positioned perfectly within range of the not-so-subtle scanning devices the aliens had installed. Currently, she was watching through the security feeds as a team of researchers in hazmat suits approached the mug like it might spontaneously achieve sentience. Ambassador, her AI assistant, chimed in. They're attempting their 47th analysis this week. Should I prepare the usual report? Please do, Zarah grinned, sipping from her backup mug. And make sure to include that thing that happened when they tried to synthesize instant coffee. The incident in question had resulted in 3 laboratories being quarantined and 1 very embarrassed Artikian scientist accidentally achieving a higher state of consciousness for approximately 2.3 seconds. Back in the research chamber, Dr. Rix was having what their species considered a scientific meltdown. Look at these readings. The humans have something called caffeine receptors they evolved specifically to process this substance. It's not just tolerance, it's adaptation. The xenobiologist's voice dropped to a whisper. They're designed for it. Rax's form clouded with concern. Are you suggesting? Yes. Their entire nervous system is optimized to not just survive this substance but to utilize it. It's like their chemical warfare platforms. Rax finished, their crystalline structure darkening with the implications. Meanwhile, in yet another lab, a team of the galaxy's brightest minds was attempting to understand the human concept of a coffee break. Their current working theory involved religious ritual, performance enhancement, and possibly mild insanity. Perhaps, suggested one brave scientist, we should try to synthesize a safe version for study. The room fell silent. The last attempt at synthetic coffee had resulted in what was now known as the Monday morning incident, which had somehow violated 3 laws of physics and created a temporary quantum singularity that smelled suspiciously like French roast. Zarah, watching all of this unfold through various feeds, decided it was time for her favorite part of the day. She stood up, straightened her diplomatic uniform, and headed toward the main research wing, carrying a fresh pot of what she had labeled just regular coffee, nothing special. The security sensors detected her approach, and 3 different alarm systems activated simultaneously. She could hear the panic even through the reinforced doors. She's coming. Secure the samples. Enable the containment fields. Someone call Xenohazard Control. Zarah pressed the intercom button. Anyone want a cup? Just brewed fresh. The resulting chaos could be heard 3 decks up. Later that day, Dr. Rix added another entry to their increasingly desperate research log, A847 of the coffee investigation. The humans continue to display immunity to what we have now classified as a Class X biochemical agent. Ambassador Chen offered me something called a mocha today. I'm beginning to suspect they're just showing off now. And in her office, Zarah Chen filed her daily report to Earth. The experiment continues. They still haven't figured out I've been drinking decaf all week. The report was accompanied by a request for more coffee beans. After all, the galaxy's greatest secret wasn't the coffee itself, it was how much humans enjoyed watching everyone else try to figure it out. Operation Bean Counter is now in effect, announced Director Vith of the Galactic Intelligence Agency. Their gelatinous form quivering with determination. The assembled agents, the finest covert operatives from 17 different species, stood at attention in what they assumed was a human-like manner. Most of them had spent months studying Earth posture videos and were still getting it hilariously wrong. Your mission, Vith continued, is to infiltrate these Starbucks facilities, which our intelligence suggests are actually chemical weapons distribution centers disguised as social gathering spots, and obtain samples of their most potent brew. A holographic map displayed the thousands of Starbucks locations across Earth. One agent's environmental suit began leaking in anxiety. Remember your training ex-Vith emphasized, you must blend in. Act casual. Order like a human. Somewhere in Seattle 3 hours later, a PX Laxian agent wearing what they thought was convincing human clothing, actually a mixture of a scuba suit, formal Victorian dress, and Crocs, approached a Starbucks counter. "Greetings, fellow human," they announced at maximum volume. "I would like to purchase 1 coffee, please. As is normal, for I am human and require chemical stimulation to function." The barista didn't even look up from their phone. Grande, Venti, or Trenta. The agent's tentacles twisted in panic. Their extensive intelligence briefing hadn't covered this scenario. "Yes," they responded confidently. Meanwhile, in New York, a Medusan operative in a trench coat and fedora, their plasma form glowing obviously underneath, was attempting to steal used coffee grounds from the dumpster behind a cafe. They hadn't accounted for the local raccoons who took extreme offense to the competition. The resulting plasma raccoon standoff would later become the stuff of urban legend. Back at the Galactic Embassy, Zarah Chen was having the time of her life. She'd discovered no fewer than 7 different surveillance devices in her office coffee maker, 3 attempts to scan her coffee beans through her diplomatic bag, and 1 very unfortunate ZX Slack agent who had tried to disguise themselves as a coffee machine. You know, she addressed the coffee maker that was clearly vibrating with nervousness. If you wanted to try some, you could have just asked. The agent's crystalline structure nearly shattered in panic. "I don't know what you mean. I am simply a normal Earth coffee preparation device. Would you like me to process some beans for totally normal and not analytical purposes?" Zarah poured herself a fresh cup from her actual coffee maker. "Really? Because last I checked, coffee makers don't usually sweat." The agent's disguise literally fell apart as they fled the office, leaving behind a very confused security team and 1 extremely amused ambassador. The situation reached new heights of absurdity when the GI attempted a coordinated operation across multiple Starbucks locations. Their carefully planned mission fell apart almost immediately when they discovered the complexity of human coffee ordering systems. In Los Angeles. "What do you mean half-calf? Is this some kind of binary chemical weapon system?" In London. "No, I do not want milk foam art. I seek only the pure stimulant essence." In Tokyo. "Cease inquiring about my rewards card. I will not be tracked by your beverage surveillance system." The reports flooding into GIA headquarters grew increasingly desperate. Day 15 humans appear to have developed coded language for chemical concentrations. Grande quad-shot sugar-free vanilla soy latte with extra foam believed to be request for weapons-grade stimulants. Day 23 discovered mysterious pumpkin spice variant, possibly seasonal biological weapon. Humans displaying addictive behavior, require immediate extraction. Day 30 have been standing in line for 3 hours. Humans unconcerned by wait times for their chemical fix. Their endurance is frightening. Zarah had compiled all these reports into what she called her comedy folder. Her favorite was from an agent who had accidentally ordered a frappuccino and spent 6 hours bouncing off the walls of their containment unit, screaming about the humans' frozen death brew. The paranoia among the alien species reached new heights when they discovered the concept of coffee loyalty cards. The idea that humans had institutionalized and gamified their chemical dependency was too much for some species to handle. "They're tracking their own consumption," one analyst screamed during a briefing. "They're proud of it. They compete for status based on their resistance to the substance." Director ex-Vith had to call an emergency session when they discovered the existence of Death Wish coffee. The mere concept of humans deliberately engineering their stimulant to be even more potent sent 3 departments into lockdown. The final straw came when Zarah, tired of finding increasingly bizarre surveillance attempts in her office, decided to host a coffee tasting session for the diplomatic corps. The invitation sent 6 different intelligence agencies into crisis mode. "It's a trap," they declared. "She's testing our resistance. Or worse," one analyst suggested, "she's trying to build our tolerance slowly. They're attempting to engineer a chemically dependent diplomatic corps." When the day of the tasting arrived, Zarah set up a simple spread of different roasts and brewing methods. She watched with barely contained glee as the assembled diplomats, each wearing increasingly elaborate protective gear, tried to politely decline while also attempting to scan everything in sight. "Oh, come now," she said, lifting her own cup. "It's just coffee." See, she took a long sip. 3 emergency protocols were activated simultaneously. 3 more species added Earth to their list of potentially hostile chemical warfare states. And somewhere in the GI headquarters, Director Xvith began drafting what would become known as the Bean Protocol. Emergency procedures for dealing with humanity's most potent weapon, their morning brew. Zarah sent her daily report to Earth that evening. Operation Freakout the Aliens continues to exceed expectations, requesting permission to introduce them to energy drinks next month. Attached, surveillance footage of attempted Starbucks infiltrations. The raccoon incident is particularly recommended. The response from Earth was simple: permission granted. Don't forget to show them the drive-through coffee stands. Let's see how they handle humans obtaining stimulants at high speed. It started, as many galaxy-shaking discoveries do, with a simple accident. Dr. K. Reeks, running on their 4th straight shift of human beverage analysis, knocked over an improperly sealed container of what the humans casually called a double-shot espresso. The resulting splash barely covered 3 square centimeters of laboratory floor. That 3 square centimeters would change galactic history forever. The first sign that something was wrong came when a junior researcher's environmental suit registered a contamination alert. The second sign was that same researcher suddenly developing the ability to perceive 7 new dimensions while simultaneously calculating pi to 1,000 digits. Containment breached, the lab's AI screamed, its usually calm voice reaching notes that shouldn't have been possible for its speakers. Unknown chemical accelerant detected. Dr. K. Reeks watched in horror as the spilled coffee began to eat through the laboratory's supposedly indestructible floor. Not because it was acidic, no. It was somehow making the metal floor vibrate at its resonant frequency through sheer chemical energy alone. "Quick, get a sample," they yelled, before remembering that this was exactly the kind of thinking that got mad scientists in trouble. Evacuate. Evacuate. The emergency response team arrived in full hazmat gear to find 3 researchers speaking in tongues. Specifically, they were reciting the entire history of mathematics in perfect chronological order. 2 more who had achieved temporary enlightenment. And 1 who was trying to write a unified theory of everything on the walls using only interpretive dance. Meanwhile, in her office, Zarah Chen was enjoying her afternoon espresso when her terminal lit up with emergency broadcasts from across the galaxy. Breaking news: human performance enhanced substance exposure event. Alert: coffee declared Class X restricted material. Urgent: are humans actually chemical weapons in disguise? She nearly spit out her drink laughing when she saw the headline: human coffee revealed to be super soldier serum. Have we been infiltrated by an army of enhanced warriors? The Galactic Security Council convened an emergency session, broadcast across all channels. High Commander Virax's crystal form was vibrating at such a frequency that they had to be stabilized by support drones. "The analysis is conclusive," they announced to the assembled representatives. What humans casually consume as a beverage is, to every other known species, a substance so potent it defies our chemical classification systems. A single human cup of coffee contains enough stimulant to power a small city, or drive an entire platoon of our finest warriors into a berserker frenzy. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Artikians began stress sublimating. The Medusans' plasma forms were cycling through colors not seen since the birth of the universe. Someone screamed, "They drink it for pleasure." Surveillance footage from the lab incident began circulating across the galactic networks. The sight of the junior researcher achieving temporary omniscience while screaming, "I can taste mathematics," became an instant viral sensation. Dr. K. Reeks's preliminary report didn't help matters. Subject: human chemical tolerance analysis, finding what the actual untranslatable expletive. Summary: they are drinking it. They are drinking it. Some of them drink it multiple times per day. The implications are simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. Request immediate funding for bunker construction. Zarah's communicator wouldn't stop buzzing with urgent messages. Is it true you consume this substance daily? How are you still alive? Can you teach us your ways? Please stop bringing it to council meetings. She decided to respond to them all with a single image, a selfie of her enjoying a fresh cup of espresso with the caption, "Time for my afternoon pick-me-up." Anyone want to join? 3 different species declared a state of emergency. The final straw came when someone leaked the existence of energy drinks to the galactic media. The concept of humans casually consuming coffee and taurine sent the galactic stock markets into a tailspin. Coffee beans became the most valuable commodity in 7 sectors, despite no non-human being able to safely handle them. As the panic reached its peak, Zarah sat in her office, feet up on her desk, sipping her 4th espresso of the day, while watching the chaos unfold on multiple screens. Her AI assistant was keeping a running tally of how many species had officially classified Earth as a chemical hazard zone. Should we tell them about energy drink and coffee combinations, the AI asked. Zarah grinned. Let's save Red Bull and espresso for next week's diplomatic crisis. One revelation at a time. She picked up her world's most dangerous diplomat mug, a gag gift that had suddenly become frighteningly accurate, and began drafting her report to Earth. Operation Accidental Revelation successful. Suggest preparing diplomatic response to being classified as a civilization of chemical super soldiers. Also, please send more coffee. The embassy's supply is running low, and I'm running out of ways to terrify the galactic community. The response from Earth arrived minutes later. Situation understood. Sending immediate coffee reinforcements. Also, please stop making the aliens question their place in the universe. At least until after lunch. Zarah took another sip of her espresso and smiled. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity hadn't even introduced them to chocolate yet. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called to order with all the dignity and decorum one might expect from a room full of panicking alien diplomats. Which is to say, none at all. The Grand Chamber, usually a model of interstellar cooperation, had been hastily retrofitted with additional air filtration systems, chemical detection arrays, and what appeared to be a portable quantum containment field around the human section. 3 different species were wearing what they assumed were radiation suits but looked suspiciously like repurposed trash bags. High Counselor V-Rax's crystalline form was barely maintaining cohesion as they called the session to order. We are here today to address the grave threat, the serious concern, they paused, noticing Ambassador Chen's raised eyebrow. The situation regarding human chemical consumption habits. The PX Laxian delegation immediately raised all 12 of their tentacles. We demand immediate classification of this coffee as a biological weapon. The research data is clear. It's not a beverage. It's a military-grade stimulant. Oh, please. Zarah Chen stood up, deliberately lifting her coffee mug. The entire non-human portion of the chamber flinched. If we wanted to weaponize coffee, we wouldn't be so obvious about it. We'd probably use energy drinks. Several emergency pressure valves activated as multiple species began panic ventilating. The data is undeniable. Dr. K. Ricks had been called as an expert witness, though they were presenting their findings from inside what appeared to be a personal force field. A single shot of espresso contains enough stimulant to power a small city. The average human consumes multiple doses daily. Some even drink it. Their voice dropped to a horrified whisper, ... before operating heavy machinery. Zarah took a long, deliberate sip from her mug. You mean like spaceships? 3 delegates fainted. Furthermore, another scientist chimed in, their tentacles trembling as they operated the holographic display. We have evidence of humans combining this substance with something called overtime and deadlines, creating conditions that should be lethal to any known species. Oh, that's nothing. Zarah smiled. Wait until you hear about college finals week. The chamber erupted into chaos. Demands for sanctions, containment protocols, and mandatory decaffeination zones filled the air. One particularly passionate delegate suggested building a containment field around the entire Sol system, just to be safe. That's when Zarah Chen stood up, placed her mug deliberately on the podium, and delivered what would become known as the Humanity Runs on Coffee speech. Distinguished delegates of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice cutting through the panic like a well-brewed dark roast through Monday morning drowsiness. You see before you what you believe to be a weapon, a danger, a threat to galactic peace. She lifted her mug. This is not a weapon. This is humanity's friend. Our companion through long nights and early mornings, the fuel that powered our journey to the stars. The chamber fell silent, partly in awe and partly in horror. Yes, we drink it. Yes, it would probably kill most of you. Yes, some of us prefer it with pumpkin spice. But consider this: a species that can casually consume what you consider a military-grade stimulant isn't a threat. We're an asset. After all, she smiled. Who else would you want handling the paperwork when the galaxy needs saving? That's when it happened. Every human delegate in the chamber, as if choreographed, reached under their desks and produced their own thermos. The synchronized sound of dozens of vacuum-sealed caps unscrewing echoed through the suddenly silent chamber. Now then, Zarah continued, refilling her mug with deliberate slowness. Shall we discuss how humanity can help the galaxy? Perhaps over a cup of coffee? The Medusan delegate's plasma form turned a color previously unknown to physics. The Artikians began stress sublimating so rapidly they had to be evacuated. Someone in the back of the chamber started quietly sobbing about something called French press. And then, in a moment that would go down in galactic history, one brave ZX-THLAC diplomat stood up. I would like to try it. The weakest possible version, please, for science. The chamber gasped. Zarah's smile widened. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all configurations, this is what we humans call a coffee break. Would anyone else like to join? The resulting mixture of terror and curiosity would reshape galactic politics forever, as would the incident that followed when someone accidentally ordered a triple-shot latte instead of decaf. Later that day, Zarah added a postscript to her official report: diplomatic crisis averted through strategic application of coffee-based diplomacy. Request permission to introduce concept of coffee shop meetings to galactic culture. Also, please send more decaf. We may have accidentally created the galaxy's first coffee appreciation society. The response from Earth was immediate: permission granted. But please, for the love of all that's holy, don't tell them about cold brew yet. The galaxy isn't ready. 6 months after what became known as the Great Coffee Revelation, the galaxy had achieved a sort of nervous equilibrium with humanity's chemical proclivities. Warning signs had been posted around Earth's solar system: caution, approaching chemical hazard zone, naturally occurring stimulant users ahead. Starbucks had been officially classified as a controlled substance distribution network, though their CEO was reportedly delighted by the boost in marketing. Experience Earth's most powerful chemical enhancement now with extra whip had become their new slogan, much to the horror of galactic safety regulators. The Galactic Federation had created an entirely new classification for humanity: Class X species, natural chemical resistance. The accompanying report noted, with poorly concealed terror, that humans appear to have evolved specifically to consume substances that would be considered military-grade stimulants by any reasonable species. In her office, at the Galactic Embassy, Ambassador Zarah Chen was making history again. Across from her desk sat Ambassador K. Lee of the Silicon Collective, wearing only minimal protective gear, a major improvement from the full hazmat suit of previous meetings. Now remember, Zarah explained, pushing a tiny cup across the desk, this is decaf. It's like coffee with training wheels. K. Lee's crystalline form shimmered nervously. And you're certain it won't cause spontaneous enlightenment? Or temporary omniscience? Or make me taste colors? Only regular coffee does that, Zarah assured them, trying not to smile. Though I should warn you, some humans say decaf is its own form of heresy. With trembling crystalline appendages, K. Lee lifted the cup. The embassy's AI quietly began recording what might be a historic moment or an interstellar incident. For science, K. Lee whispered, and took a sip. There was a moment of tense silence. I feel perfectly normal. The surprise in K. Lee's voice was almost comical. Just a slight warmth. And, is that what you call flavor? Zarah nodded encouragingly. Welcome to the Coffee Appreciation Society. Shall we try a biscotti next, or would that be pushing it? News of K. Lee's successful coffee consumption spread rapidly through diplomatic channels. Soon, a small but brave group of alien diplomats began requesting human beverage tolerance training. A new field of xenomedicine emerged: controlled stimulant exposure therapy. Coffee shops across Earth had to be redesigned with special non-human safe zones featuring extremely diluted decaf and emergency medical stations. The first alien-safe Starbucks opened on Mars, with its menu carefully calibrated to prevent accidental exposure to full-strength human beverages. The Galactic Federation's official guidelines were updated to include a section titled Understanding Human Chemical Customs, a survivor's guide. The first line read, "Don't panic when they offer you coffee. It's not a threat, it's hospitality, usually." Zarah's training sessions became legendary. Her patient guidance of curious aliens through their first coffee experience earned her the unofficial title High Priestess of the sacred being she particularly enjoyed teaching them human coffee-related phrases. No, Death Wish Coffee is a brand name, not a suicide pact. I'd kill for a coffee is an expression, not a tactical strategy. Coffee zombie refers to uncaffeinated humans, not actual undead. As she filed her final report on the Great Coffee Integration Project, Zarah couldn't help but smile. The galaxy had finally begun to understand humanity's relationship with their beloved beverage. Sort of. Project status successful. Minimal casualties. Only 3 cases of temporary transcendence. Request permission to begin Phase 2 introduction to tea. The response from Earth was characteristically succinct, granted, but maybe wait until they stop flinching at the sight of a French press. In the end, it wasn't advanced technology, military might, or diplomatic cunning that earned humanity its unique place in the galactic community. It was their bizarre ability to casually consume what other species considered a supernatural enhancement drug and their willingness to share it, one carefully measured decaf cup at a time. Though they still haven't told anyone about espresso martinis. Some secrets are best kept for the next century.